on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight. Welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
Well, it's my honor and pleasure to have my friend. We've met on online, but not physically, as far as either of us remembers. But we're both old retired chiefs, so neither of us has much of a memory left anymore. Dan Roby, Chief Master Sergeant, retired. Good to see you, brother, and to talk to you. And finally, I mean, we've emailed, I think, and been on social media and all that stuff for many years, but we finally get to see each other. So. Welcome to the show, and thank you for your service. How long did you serve?
I did 27 years.
Okay, so you never earned chief's pay.
Right. I put chief on at about 19, and then retired at 27. It's funny. I always tell people that I had orders to come to Randolph Air Force Base and be the command chief for recruiting service, and I was like, I don't want to go to Texas. So I retired, and now I live in Texas.
You live in Texas.
So.
Well, I've often heard said that there are two types of people in this world: Texans and those who wish they were.
Absolutely.
And I'm one of those who wishes, I guess, because I don't dislike Texas. It's just too big for me, and that's just a different world down there. But I do enjoy. I think there's a Taco Cabana outside Lackland, the main gate. I do like that place. So if you want to ever invite me to hang out with you, sure. But we got to go for breakfast at Taco Cabana.
I'll bring you to some good spots. Trust me.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, if my family in New York ever thought I was going to wear cowboy boots, they would have been shocked. But now I have multiple pairs, so I've become acclimated.
Yeah. So is that where you're from originally in New York?
Upstate New York. Yeah.
Okay. Now I figure that people who say upstate New York is just they don't want to be considered part of the city. Is that pretty much it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. There's two New Yorks. There's New York City, and then there's the rest of New York. And and then the rest of New York always fights about what's upstate and what's central. But if you can't take a stroll on your bicycle and go across the Canadian border, you're not truly an upstate New Yorker. And that's me. I rode my bicycle many times across the Canadian border, and
wow.
Half of my family, my mother's side, is all from Quebec and up in that area. So yeah,
very cool, very cool. Now, what did you do on active duty, Chief?
So I started out my career as back when it was called security police. I did my first 7 years in the security police world at some garden spots called Minot. And then I went to Barksdale after that. And then I went into what I thought was just going to be a quick little short tour in the recruiting world and do my 4 years there and move on. But I spent the next 20 years of my career in the recruiting world. I just kind of found my niche and my love my love of people, my love of the Air Force. I was able to combine them in there. So it's pretty cool ride.
Yeah. So that's why you're so enthusiastic.
Boy, am I enthusiastic.
I love that saying. Well, Chief, a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about on the podcast. One is your experience as a chief in particular, and what does it take to be an effective chief? And then the other thing is you were pretty close to Chief Bob Gaylor, who passed away this past year, Chief Master of the Air Force number 5. Incredible man. I think we can both agree that he mentored us in the right ways. I loved him dearly. He and Selma. I don't know if you knew Selma. We
Yes.
loved them dearly. But anyway, let's start out with your perspective. Things are different, man. Things are different, and I don't get out to the bases much anymore. In the last, since COVID, that's what I blame everything on.
There you go.
But but things are different. The new chiefs tell me that things aren't the way they used to be, and they shouldn't stay the way they used to be. But I always think, maybe we need to go back to the future. What are the things that because we grew up about the same time, right? You came in, when did you come in?
78.
Okay, I came in 72, so pretty close to the same time. And the old chiefs took us under their wing, and they forced us to do stuff. They guided us, they mentored us, and like I've said this several times on this program, that when I put on chief, I knew how to be a chief. I had been trained by the best at Maxwell Air Force Base, where all of the schools are and everything. So I had been trained. I didn't. There was no question. Nowadays, I'm not sure that the new chiefs know what the heck's going on and how to be a chief. What are your thoughts on that?
But one of my perspectives is, you made chief, now get over yourself.
Yeah.
and start moving on. And I were always, and we talked a little bit about this earlier before the podcast, that I lived by the view of training your replacement from day one. I mean, when my folks underneath me, when I had them, I wanted them to replace me. I wanted them involved in the decisions that I made. I wanted them involved in every aspect, and not think that I had all the answers, because yeah, one of the things I tell people a lot is I made a very successful career both in the Air Force and then post Air Force days by hiring people much smarter than myself. And those young, when I was a chief, those young tech sergeants, master sergeants, I had some brilliant ones, and my communicating with them effectively and trying to train them, I learned. I learned from them because they had things that I was like, wow, that's pretty deep. And there was you always knew, and I'm sure you had your guys that you saw as like a young master sergeant, that guy's going to be a chief someday. And honored to say that many of the guys that I worked with and were on my teams went on to be really, really good chiefs. So it's that's kind of my perspective on that you really need to just get over yourself and train your replacement, and not worry about where your next job is. There's so many chief jobs these days. I think everyone's always so worried about, well, where am I going to go now? Now this is this level command chief or that level command chief, and just do your job and train your replacement.
How many assignments did you have on active duty?
Oh Lord, about probably 13, I think it was,
Yeah.
right around there. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up with 17 in 31 years, and one of the things that I was taught by those chiefs, those old chiefs, was you go where they need you. I don't know that it's so, but it seems, and not that I don't want to diss anybody, because everybody wants to settle, and especially if you have kids, you want them to go to the good schools, and you buy a house and all that kind of stuff, that all that domestic stuff. But I never, even when we got here, when I retired, that was all foreign to me. Whenever I got the call, I got, okay, where do you need me? And that's it. And every 2 years or so, I would get that call. Let's go. And I have two daughters. One's 42, I think, and the other one's 38, something like that. But they loved moving. It was a great thing. And the cue was, I'd call them and I say, "Are you sitting down? Where are we going, Dad?" So I don't do that anymore. I haven't done it in 22 years since I've been retired. But nonetheless, we went where we were needed, and nowadays I think a lot of folks, and again, I don't want to diss them. They want to stay where they're at, but there's no growth in that. And I don't know, 4 or 5 different AFSCs.
Yep.
It's not that I couldn't keep a job, Dad. No kidding. No, no kidding. I'm not okay, maybe so.
Leave you.
But but I did different things, because I wasn't I was a band guy. I don't know if you know that, and I didn't just stay in the band for those 31 years. I was moving around PME and all that kind of stuff, which I think maybe it gave me more experience. If not, if it didn't make me a better chief, it did give me more experience, and I could help others do different things. So,
Right.
but it's different, and again, the world is different, so it's not the same. Other than we still have the same purpose with same mission. And like you just said, our purpose as a chief is to help those youngsters become chiefs or whatever their capacity is. Not everyone's going to be a chief, but and you remember us saying this generation of airmen is way smarter than we ever were. You remember we used to say that.
Oh
It's,
yeah.
it's always
Yep.
been true. It's always been true.
Absolutely.
I was at the academy for 20 years, and those youngsters, they are amazing, man, what they know. And still, sometimes I'm a Mac guy, and sometimes I need help. I go find one of those cadets and say, "Hey, come here, come here. Hey, Chief, what do you need?" And then they go, did, and it's fixed. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't even know where the button was. So, but things have changed. And as a recruiter, so you were a recruiter for a long time. You got to see a lot of different uh, what's the word, ethnicities, people from different areas of the country, and I bet that
Yes.
was exciting.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think it's a lot like in a lot of AFSCs, probably the favorite time was when I was out on what they call a bag dragger, out in the street recruiter. And I was a street recruiter in Watertown, New York, right by Fort Drum. Um,
Mm.
and worked there. and you know that the God, the impact that you have and the people that you see, and you're able to help and make a difference in their life. I mean, we do that in I think all of our jobs as we go through, but taking those young people from, you know, Bob, I went to houses that had dirt floors,
Wow.
to get parental consent signed, so their son or daughter could join the Air Force and come in and do something, and to see them go to basic training and come back, and the person that they're developed into, um, years later run into people you put in the Air Force that were a chief master sergeant now. I mean, it's like, and I did that many times. It was like, wow, it's really interesting to see the impact that you have and the backgrounds that you're able to touch. I did many different recruiting roles, you know, from the bag dragger to training and officer accession and health professions and group superintendents. I did a 3-year tour up at the Pentagon, with as the chief of accession policy, where I worked with a band guy. I don't know if you remember the name David Ward, Chief Ward.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was a good buddy. In fact, I think I auditioned him into the band because he was a
Nice.
band guy. Yeah, Dave is good,
Yeah,
good people.
Dave was a great guy. He spent a lot of time in my office. Well, at the Pentagon, it's a cubicle. I
Yeah,
spent a lot of time at my cubicle because he'd come to me and say, Dan, I have this great pianist from Puerto Rico, but I can't get him to pass the ASVAB. What can you do? And you know, we worked a lot of situations and
yeah.
with band members and got things up and running. And then I spent some time down at in your neck of the woods in Maxwell at Gunner as a squadron superintendent for 4 years. Down there, we covered most of the Florida, Georgia, Alabama type region, helping a lot of diverse individuals, you know, come into the military. And my office was actually across the parking lot from the Air Force Senior NCO Academy. And you know, we're talking about all those old chiefs that would come in. I would always go over when they had the former chiefs panel, and
Yeah, yeah,
I loved it when I had a new recruiter coming in and say, "Hey, remember those guys that you saw in their PFE manual? Well, they're over here right now today. Come on."
right.
And brought them over. You know, it's really a cool time.
Yeah, yeah. As you're referring to alluding to this, Dan, there's nothing like having one of your uh, followers, I'll call them, succeed. You know,
Yes.
when they succeed, now just last week, and this is a little bit different, but the same at the same time. Four of my Air Force Academy students got command jobs. And what a cool thing to hear from them. And, you know, and God bless them. They write me and say, Chief, I got a command job, and I thank you for helping me do that. Well, I didn't have anything to do with it, other than I taught them how to be a good person. I hope
Yeah.
a good officer. But but what a great thing, man. You know, last week I was hired, and I live in Colorado, so you can get hyper on a lot of stuff over here. But I was getting a high on just hearing from those guys that they succeeded. These are the people that I helped succeed. And the same thing with enlisted people. You know, like you say, the youngsters that first came in. Dave, he was Airman Basic when he came to the band at Chanute, and eventually he got to the top of the band career field. And those are great things, you know. They're just great things. And I don't know, maybe we should. I'll go and poll some of the new chiefs. How much experience do you have that in that? You know, have you
Yeah.
gotten those notes? Have you gotten someone that walks in your door and says, "Hey, here I am. I made the highest rank because of you." You know, because that I think if when that happens you understand this is what it's all about. It's not about, and you know, some people think, I don't know where they get this idea, other than maybe the officers. We don't make a lot of money as a chief. And especially when I was on active duty, I spent every cent of it just on, you know, feeding the kids and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like you make a lot of money. And they did away with all of the parking spaces, Dan. There are no chief parking spaces at the BX anymore. I mean,
Right.
that's why I wanted to be a chief. I had my spot all that's the one I want, and they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's you know, it's in mentioning how the young folks and there were I have you know there's a good group of my airmen that came up and were, you know, seniors and chiefs, that give me way more credit than I deserve, because you know, they had it in them. But sometimes I think as chiefs we forget that we have a responsibility to help and mentor the young officer corps. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of individuals out there. You know, the one we always joke about the second lieutenants and whatnot, and I'm always I always look for those individuals to try to help and try to mentor. And, guys like, when I was a group superintendent, we had this lieutenant, Greg Ballou, and he was kind of a big, kind of a goofy guy, but you just knew that he had it in him. And, he went on, and next thing I know, time goes pretty fast as you get older, right? He's a wing commander at Langley Air Force Base, a full colonel. It's like,
Wow.
yes, and it's so we need to make sure we take care of those guys, because they need that leadership and that mentorship.
Yeah, yeah, and especially at the academy, I used to talk a lot to the cops. I'm an early bird, so I'd get in there early, and sometimes we'd just sit at the gate and just talk a little bit. And I'd always tell them, let me remind you that how you treat these cadets who are going to be officers, who are going to be wing commanders. One of them, there's no doubt, is going to be the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force. They're going to remember how you treated them, and you're
Yep.
like the only enlisted guy they see every day. So they're going to remember, and then they're going to treat all the rest of us the same way. If they hate you, they're going to hate all enlisted people. If they love you, they're going to love all the enlisted people. I think a perfect example is General Fogelman. If you ever met him and worked with him, he loved the enlisted people, man. And he's a grad, and I just saw him a couple of weeks ago, and after all these years, we've been haven't seen each other. Hey, Chief. He doesn't have to call me chief, but he still calls me chief. So
Right.
very, very respectful. I think, to me, the best chief of staff we ever had. But yeah, it's a mutual thing. Take those officers and help them how to be officers, leaders, and
Yeah.
they will remember you. They will remember you. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I
speaking
sat in
of,
many meetings with General Fogelman, by the way.
did you? Okay.
Yeah, I was at the Pentagon during his time, so I got to. It was back in the days when, in like '99, when we missed goal for the first time in 20 years. All of a sudden, I was in a lot of high level meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how you put on the carpet all of a sudden.
Yep.
All of a sudden,
Exactly.
everyone knows you. Uh,
Everyone.
Hey, Dan, before I forget, I want to thank you so much for returning this book. I don't know if hopefully the video audience can see it. This is actually the first book I ever wrote. I've got 17 or 18 on Amazon now. I don't even know. I don't keep count. But and this is I published this on my own, and I sent Chief Gaylor this particular copy. And from what I understand, you were going through Chief Gaylor's stuff, and you saw it and asked me if I wanted it back. Yes, because I covet, the relationship that he and I had. Again, thank you so much for doing that. You got connected pretty well with him the last few years, right?
I did. We had some great conversations. He was just always such a delight. He had he for some reason he always remembered my wife. More than he remembered me. But
And how was he, 80, 90 years old? He remembered dates like you wouldn't, but every time that we were together, and it was usually, well, every time was at a military function. And we'd be talking, and someone would come up, and he'd say, "Hey, let me introduce you to Bob Vasquez. We met." Well, I have no idea, but he
right.
remembered the date, man. It's like, okay, Chief, whatever you say. No, he could have been making it up, and I wouldn't have known. But he remembered all of that stuff,
Yeah.
man.
The,
Great,
la the
great
last
man.
picture I have of him and I was at the one of the AFSA conferences where it was like sports night or something, and I of course had my Dallas Cowboy stuff on, and I believe he had the Chicago Cubs shirt on. But we had that picture taken, but it was quite the night because it was late. And there was like all the younger folks have all gone and gone to bed. It was, when I say late, it was like perhaps a conference 10, 11 o'clock at night. And everyone was trickling away. And you go out there, and there was Chief Gaylor sitting there still talking to people, just giving them hugs, showing them the Chief Gaylor love. And he was quite an inspiration. Absolutely. And I'm really humble. Like in my home office, I'm looking over at Chief Gaylor's personal desk. It
Oh,
was something that I so cherished, that I was lucky enough to get when, unfortunately, when the chief passed. And it's where he wrote all his personal notes, did his bills, spent, according to Carol, Kenny, his kids, that he spent almost all his time at that desk. So I try to follow his lead, because he liked to write personal notes,
right.
and send them out. And so I've tried now. I have my own personal notes, and I try to write them at Chief's desk, and send them out to folks, other than the email type thing. So it's
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Cherished part of my life right now.
Yeah, I'm planning to write a book next year, Dan, that I'll dedicate to him because he taught me the most important thing I think that a leader does. And the title of the book is going to be Effective Leaders Care. Well, no, the effective, because I think it's personal. The effective leader cares, and it's an acronym for what cares uh, means. And I think, like we were talking earlier, part of what the way we can make chiefs leaders better is to explain to them what we're talking about. Because, we use terminology, words that maybe they don't understand, but we do because we were there. We went through that period and
Right.
we understand. What does it mean to care? But that's what Chief Gaylor taught me is to care. And I don't. I know that I attended at least 10, probably more of his talks throughout the years, and everything that he ever said, to me, went back to just care. If you
Mhm.
care, that's how, and that's what the book will be about. How do you show that you care? Because you can say you care and not show it. That means to me you don't care.
Yeah,
So
and caring doesn't make you a soft person, doesn't make you a softer leader. Caring in my I hope anyway, all my folks knew that I truly cared for them personally, professionally. And then but then that means that when I gave them a kick in the butt, it hurt a lot more. They felt it because they got it from someone that cares for them versus,
yeah,
oh, there's another kick in the butt from the chief. No, you show you care and they know that. And it's like, oh man, I must have really screwed up, because the chief was pissed at me,
right.
So I absolutely agree.
Yeah, but and I don't want to equate leading airmen with being a dad, but in many cases, that's the way it is. A parent, you don't let your child do stupid stuff. If they're about to do stuff stupid, something stupid, you stop them. And if they do it, then you teach them that it was not right, and why it wasn't right. But and there have been, I remember and as a chief, we don't throw people out of the Air Force. The commander does, but we recommend and
Mhm.
guide the boss to do whatever should be done. And I remember in one particular place where it was during the downsizing years. I don't remember when it was, what years it was, around the 90s, I guess. And I was sent to a band to we had too many people there. Go get rid of half of them, or whatever it was. And I thought, man, that's going to be tough. And it was tough, but it was tough love, And interestingly, there were like the ones that I can remember on the other side of the desk crying because we were telling them you're out, uh, who were devastated by it. Interestingly, they didn't know that they were screwing up. That's another topic, but nonetheless, in later years, they corresponded with me, and each of them has said, "Thanks, because that's the best thing that ever happened to me. I wasn't in the right place. You did the tough thing. You did the right thing. I didn't like it at the time." But it was the best thing. And, a tough love. General Jumper used
Yep.
to talk about that a lot. You just, again, you do, you, or let them fail and fail and fail. Eventually, they become failures. But yeah, if you